Hello and thank you for joining me back here at Ready to Ride. This session is going to be focusing on stretches for your lower body. Stretches are something that I think we could probably all do a little bit more of, and some people are really good at doing, but quite often people I find don't really know the best way to do stretches or actually the best stretches to do. If you want more information about stretches or indeed any of the exercises that we do in these sessions, please have a look at the blog that accompanies this YouTube channel, which is readytoride.online. So we'll get started with a calf stretch, and this is really important for riders because there are two calf muscles, if you weren't already aware, one that stops below the knee and one that goes above the knee. And because of the riding position, the calf muscle that goes above the knee is often actually working in a shortened position. So we need to stretch it out, and we go into a lunge position to do it. I'll show you the side view shortly. Although this is a stretching exercise, I still think it's really worthwhile thinking about your pelvic position as you do it. So with both legs as best as you can, try to think of having your headlights lined up with the centre of your knees and your second and third toe. The calf stretch is therefore really simple. You just go forwards, keeping your back heel down and your back knee straight until you feel a gentle stretch through the calf. Ideally with stretches, you want to be holding them for about 10 seconds. I find that a little bit difficult to do when I'm talking. I lose count of how many seconds that I've done. And each stretch you do 3 times with each leg. So in total you're doing 30 seconds, but it's in blocks of 10. So forwards again into the stretch, aiming to hold for about 10 seconds. And in this position again, although once again we're talking about stretch, it's worthwhile thinking about your upper body as well so that you're not cheating and adopting poor posture. So we'll do one final stretch on this leg, and as I go into it I watch I don't tip forward. A lot of people do that, but if you tip forward the back heel actually comes up off the floor and it's not really working your body particularly symmetrically as a whole. Unless you have a specific problem, I always suggest or recommend that you do stretches on both legs the same. My other leg, I'm going to do it sideways on so you can see the other view. So you're going to go forwards into that stretch, keeping the back heel down and the back knee straight. Knees, headlights and second and third toes lined up with each other. Watching that body doesn't tip forward as I go into the stretch. And then straighten up. You don't need to pause for particularly long between each of those stretches. Pause again. And you will remember I mentioned in my very first post on this channel about my own posture not being particularly good. I hinge through my low back, so I do have to really watch that I don't do that as I go into this stretch position. Do one more stretch this way. And you should find that it does get a little bit easier. Each stretch that you do, it should feel less tight. And if you really want to, you can always make your step bigger so you increase the stretch that way. Okay, so I've now done 3 stretches with each leg, and we're going to move on to an adductor stretch. Your adductors are your inner thigh muscles. And again, they're really important because we use our adductors an awful lot when we're riding, and it's important to make sure that they're functioning really well. So for the adductor stretch, you want to be in a wider position. I suggest putting your hands onto your headlights just because it gives you a little bit of feedback, but also gives you something to do with your hands. It's quite hard, some of these exercises. You think, what on earth do I do with my hands? They're just getting in the way. Put them on your headlights, it keeps them occupied and out of the way. So we'll go to the right for me first of all, that'll probably be the left for you. I'm going to go over onto my right leg with the aim of stretching my left adductor. If you don't feel much of a stretch, then lean over towards that foot. It just changes the angle of your pelvis and where the adductor attaches, and it makes the stretch that little bit bigger. So once again, same as with the calf stretch, you come up, pause for a few seconds, and go to the same side. So you do all your stretches one way, and then you repeat them all the other way. Some of these exercises can be a little bit challenging for your balance, but that's not a bad thing. You're multitasking, working on balance and stretch at the same time. A little bit like with the calf stretch, you do need to keep an eye on what your upper body is doing as well, so watching that you don't tip forward. It's not a great habit to get into, and it does alter the stretch that you get as well. So I've stretched my left side, I'm now going to go over to the left and stretch the right. So for me this one's a little bit tighter and I don't actually need to go into that side bending position nor just feel stretch, certainly not on this first repetition. And back up again. And obviously another way you can make these stretches bigger is just by taking your feet further apart again. But that's not so easy to balance. The wider apart your feet, the harder it is to keep your balance, particularly coming in and out of the stretch. Okay, so I'm just going to do one more to this side. Okay, our final stretch is for your hip flexors, and we need to go into kneeling to do this. The hip flexors are a really important muscle for riders because, as I'm sure you can appreciate, being in that semi-seated position with a slightly flexed hip does, particularly if you're in the saddle for any length of time, really put those muscles at risk of getting a little bit tight. And so this is a really, really nifty little stretch to stretch out those muscles, and you'll be really surprised at what you feel. This exercise is a real test of balance though as well. So you're in this half kneeling position, starting with your headlights. All you need to do is tilt your headlights up towards the ceiling, just like you do in the warm-up exercises. And you should find as you do that, that the leg that you're kneeling on suddenly feels really tight around the front, and that is your hip flexors being put on a stretch. Then to ease off, you just tilt your headlights straight ahead again. As with the previous two, pause for a few seconds and then repeat, taking the stretch on by tilting your headlights up towards the ceiling. And then ease the stretch off. Do try and work on your balance a little bit as well with this one. Make the most of the challenge. One more stretch on. Make the most of the challenge by really trying to keep your balance as well as doing the stretch. Okay, stretch off and then swap your legs over to the opposite position. Get your balance before you start, and then when you're ready, once again take those headlights up towards the ceiling, and you're aiming to do that 10-second hold. To be fair, it's not going to be the end of the world if you only do 8 seconds or you find you've done 15, and ease off again. But what you're aiming for is not to do 4 or 5 seconds. One more stretch up, because you really won't achieve what you want to do if you only hold for 4 or 5 seconds. And equally, if you hold that position for half a minute and repeat that 3 times, you're probably not gaining, just take the stretch off, you're probably not gaining anything like as much as you think you should be. So do one last stretch this way, so headlights up towards the ceiling. And ease the headlights off. And there you are. That's 3 stretches that you can do really easily at any time, but particularly before you ride. Or if you've noticed that perhaps certain parts of your body feeling a little bit stiffer than you would like when you're riding, or you notice it afterwards, have a bit of a workout at doing these stretches on a more regular basis and see if that changes how you feel. Thanks for joining me on these stretches, and hopefully I'll see you again soon for some more Pilates and horse racing exercises. Thank you very much.